Hi, my name is Katie. I'm a neurodivergent coach and community builder in Portland, and I am back because I cannot stop reading this book. I don't want to. So we are on part 2, The Making of Feel Something, Make Something by Metz. So grateful that they created this guide to collaborating with your emotions because I am just loving it so much. Okay, part 2, The Making. Let's do it. Okay, there are a bunch of images here of a receipt, a rock, sticky notes, mark making tool, sticks, a leaf, scissors, glue, your phone camera. There are some acorns, pine cone, a leaf, napkin, newspaper, and scissors if I didn't already see that. You don't need to tell me You don't need me to tell you how to express yourself or document your days, how to let the full weight of what it means to be human flow through your fingers and onto a page. We have been creating tangible representations of our experiences to make sense of the world for thousands of years. If you're suddenly feeling the urge to carry on about whether or not you're any good at art, if you have the time for it or all the necessary supplies, then hear me loud and clear. You already have everything you need. If you don't think you're good at art making, call it mark making. Anyone can make marks. No caveats, no excuses. Use your 3-year-old's broken crayons. Swipe that half dried up Sharpie. Fold down a receipt. Scribble something on that napkin, the greasy one you just wiped your pizza fingers on. I honestly do not care how or with what, just that you do. Love ya, mean it. When I say you have everything you need to make things, I mean it. And it's also really nice to have someone offer a framework for practices you haven't tried before. The rest of these pages hold prompts, guides, and tutorials for writing, drawing, and other forms of creating. Please view them as the gentlest offerings from me to you. What you create in collaboration with the thoughts, ideas, and feelings you uncover will depend on how much time you have, what tools and materials are available to you, your capacity or physical energy, and whether you want to sustain, channel, or shift your emotions. How do you want to be in relationship with the thoughts, ideas, and feelings swirling around inside you? Do you want to sustain your grief, make ceremony around it, allow it to wash over you? Do you want to find an outlet for your rage? Perhaps you could channel it into a social justice movement close to your heart. Would you like to shift your fears into gratitude? What practices might help you deepen a sense of awe? Are you struggling to get out of bed each day? Or are you bounding with pent-up energy? What do you need to find a steady place within yourself? Do you need something to pull you up or a place to ground down? We all operate at different levels of intensity. Establishing your baseline helps you know when you're moving away from your grounded self. I find art making to be the most useful way to bring myself up out of the dark depths or down from a disconnected buzz. Okay, so there's a paper here. It says anxious, frenetic, manic, buzzing at the top, and depressed, melancholic, exhausted, frozen at the bottom. My vision is blurry, I can't focus on processing information, I'm hypervigilant, can't feel my body, easily agitated, breath is shallow and fast. I can feel my legs, and then right here it says baseline. I can feel my legs, I am easily patient with my tiny human. I can sit quietly without discomfort, my breath is steady, I can follow a thought without overwhelm, I pause for tiny delights. So down at the bottom, the depressed, melancholic, exhausted, frozen. My arms feel heavy. I want to go to sleep. I'm disconnected from my surroundings, zoning out and avoidant AF. The bottom it says, want to get needy? No, it doesn't. It says, want to get nerdy? Look into the window of tolerance developed by Dan Siegel. So good. Okay. In order to remain in a steady place within yourself, you need to sustain, channel, or shift your feeling through art making. Sustain. Remain in your current state by observing and taking note of the sensations present for you. Try documenting your immediate context. Create a ritual to honor how you're feeling. Channel. Take what you're feeling and use it as momentum or fodder. Put it into your work. Can you make something expressive or disruptive with the energy your feelings are generating? Shift. Transform the feeling by engaging in a conversation between the various parts of yourself and the sensations within your body, or release the feeling by making something expressive. So there's three hands. One's holding to sustain, one's kind of up in the air to change, molding it, and one's shifting, to channel, sorry. And one's shifting to kind of move it around. You can see those. Okay. So this is a whole bunch of practices and ways of kind of engaging the sustain, channel, or shift. It says in black with white writing, ritual, documentation, conversation, expression, and disruption. And then in black with white around it, it says ceremony, stillness, pause, awe, sacred, system, rules, presence, meditate, organize, intimacy, connection, order, make meaning, honor, posterity, important, list, observe, record, archive, collect, track, remember, pass down, preserve, tangible memory, story, save, value, non-judgment, notice, ask questions, ideas, thoughts, socially engaged, and exchange, curiosity, listen, respond, listening, open, tell your story, release, let it go, shout from the rooftop, bubbling out, reveal, take up space, exclaim, speak out, expansive, share, expand, interrupt, don't settle, break, cycle, shift, ask, subvert, reject, change, reorder, pivot, dissent, challenge, listen to your body, make your own way, question, nonconformity. Okay, let's break each of these down. So this is kind of like a little mind map of words around each thing you can do with them to see like what that might look like or how it might feel. Ritual. Ceremony, integration, intimacy, honor, presence, stillness. Ritual can be an intricate series of practices, but more often than not, it takes the shape of tiny moments in the eye of a toddler tornado. Pre-pandemic parenthood, I luxuriated in early morning stillness, waking up before the sun, fully rested by 5 a.m., candles, incense, morning pages, tarot, tea, and yoga. It was as delightful as it sounds, and it is completely unsustainable for me now, and probably most of you too. These days, my morning ritual consists of a 2-minute scribble that grounds me into my body and a few written words detailing something I've noticed. This is often done with a toddler attached to my legs or wriggling about on my lap. I've turned my morning practice into something much simpler than it used to be. After swallowing my daily meds, I do a blind contour portrait of myself and jot down the first thing that comes to mind as the title. Rituals don't need to be difficult or complex to matter. This daily nibble at my art practice quickly morphs into a sketchbook filled with self-portraits. This practice offers me a moment of pause each morning, as well as an artifact to mark these blurry days, where I wake to my face being patted by tiny hands attached to a squirmy body, doing acrobatics across the bed. I don't spring from my pillow anymore. I stay nestled in, savoring the alternating sweet pats and wild whacks of my wee one's springy limbs until the numbers on the clock elicit more anxiety than the bed holds comfort. But no matter how late we might be, I can always spare 2 minutes. 2 minutes of presence with my reflection in the mirror and an acknowledgement of at least one thought in my head. I set myself up for success with this ritual by gathering my tools and giving them a home in the spot I'll use them. Most importantly, I didn't just fling a ritual into my day all willy-nilly. I gave it a piggyback ride on a pre-existing habit. I always take my medicine in the morning, so I bought a pill case with a mirror and put it in a jar on my kitchen table, along with a pen and a tiny sketchbook for my daily drawings. Rituals can also be born by accident. For example, I captured the commute from my house to my studio in a 15-second video on the first day I crept out for a full day of work in my very own space. All I included in the frame were my feet walking across the toy-strewn muddy yard to my garage turned studio. I recorded it in a rush of excitement, not intending to repeat it or thinking any more about it than that it would make a cute story on Instagram. But that thrill has yet to fade. Every time I make my way to the doors of my studio, it feels like the first. I hope the prickle of gratitude never stops, spreading goosebumps across my skin, and I continue this practice of recording the steps between my safe dwelling and this room of my own. Such abundance calls for acknowledgement. This simple practice does just that. What do you need? Can you give yourself that thing through art making? Let the act of creating be what nourishes you. Whatever results is simply an artifact of time spent caring for yourself. Your turn. Can you litter your days with moments of ritual that connect you to a sense of grandeur while inviting stillness within yourself? Consider transitions, just before this or right after that. See where you already have a habit and piggyback on it with a ritual. Set yourself up for success. Make your rituals small, achievable, nourishing, and delightful. They should give more than they take from you. Prepare yourself for them. Set the stage. Be realistic about your time and energy. Take note of patterns. Do you always feel drawn to take a picture of the same tree? Could you make it a regular practice that you attend to with intention? Notice what delights you, but also be aware of what is missing. Can you fill an empty spot in your schedule, heart, or home with a nourishing practice? Want to dig deeper? 4 Small Creatures Such as We, Rituals for Finding Meaning in Our Unlikely World by Sasha Sagan. The Power of Moment, Why Certain Experiences Have Extraordinary Impact by Chip Heath and Dan Heath. Rules of Engagement TEDx Talk by Kate Bingaman-Burt. Kate Bingaman-Burt. You teach us about regularity and repetition as you document the way we live and what we consume. I've learned how to craft a practice of ritual for myself by witnessing your process. Thank you. Documentation. Tracking, remembering, observation, order, chronicle, proof. So here's journal entry, a Polaroid, a ticket stub. This is a pile of letters, some art, and a phone with Instagram photo on it. Documentation can be a lot of things, from list making to poetry, intricate drawings of everything you eat, or portraits taken at regular intervals to mark growth. For me, it is integrated into every part of my tiny existence in my medium-sized town in this great big world. This method of art making permeates all of the various ways I create. It can be a ritual or expression, a conversation and form of disruption. There is a line in one of my favorite songs by Cloud Cult that says, "If ever I can't see the magic around me, please take my hands off my eyes." It's a phrase I've written over and over for myself as a reminder to be awake to the life happening all around me. I don't ever want to catch myself thinking, if only I'd enjoyed that time. I want to know how deeply precious and wondrous these boring, silly, tedious, beautiful moments are as they happen. I want to memorialize my life while I'm alive. I do this by documenting every little thing through photographs, drawings, and writing. Recording your life is a way of creating a field guide for yourself. Wholeheartedly agree. Every time you note a feeling, sensation, or idea, it's like dropping a pin on the map of your life. These markers serve as memorials and directives. You can look back and know you have indeed made it through a hard thing before and will again. You can document like an archivist, collecting moments and memories to keep you warm on cold nights, or as a scientist plotting data to cross-reference your past and present experiences. I am a cartographer, storyteller, and analyst. I scribble drawings of the clothes that give me a sense of gender euphoria, so I might later have a record of what feels good on my body. I fill my camera roll with videos of me and my tiny being, often in a blur of tickles and kisses, tiny portals we can travel back to anytime we wish. I document the sky out of wistful admiration, but also as a tether to mark this time and place. Here I am, a tiny speck of the cosmos, and this is what the sky looks like, just as I witnessed Brandi Carlile for the first time in concert as the walls to my new studio are put in place and as I submit the manuscript for this book. These photos feel more like self-portraits than landscapes of the clouds. In them, I am transcendent and gloriously insignificant. I leave all the things I make in this life as a trail of crumbs or flickering lights, something to reference when I look back or guide the way forward. I deeply believe the wider the range of human experience documented, the more we will belong together in a weird and delightful state of non-judgment. Brené Brown talks about normalizing things for her kids so they don't experience shame, particularly around bodies. And I think that's what documentational work has done for me. Seeing a wide range of stories, experiences, ideas, and identities, each different than my own, ease my fear about not lining up with one perfect way of being. At the other end of the spectrum, it feels like a homecoming to witness my experience being named by someone else. I immediately feel like weeping when I come across images or words that mirror back to me what I've been experiencing. I hope the things I choose to archive and record do the same for others. This is how we make the world a little less lonely. This is how we say, my story is true and so is yours. And the tension between multiple realities is what gives form and dimension to our world. In the words of Mary Oliver, pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. Your turn. Grab your phone or favorite camera and wander around your house. Take photos as a neutral observer. Let every pile, overflowing closet, and tuft of dog hair be a still life waiting to be framed. Can you find any gallery-worthy installations or performance pieces created by those who inhabit your home? What beauty can you find among the mayhem? Collect and archive anything you're drawn to. Save scraps of paper, tickets, notes, paint chips, and create a visual or written archive of your favorite items. Give yourself a tiny daily project that records just a sliver of your life. Choose something you're curious about or want to preserve. Document it through a photo, drawing, words, or audio, etc. It must be doable within 3 to 5 minutes and with materials that are easily accessible to you. Consider how you might ritualize this practice for your daily life. Want to dig deeper? Anything written by Mary Oliver. Dear Data by Georgia Lupi and Stephanie Prosevec. Kate Bingaman-Burt's Daily Purchase Drawings. Maria Seal's 52 List Series. Mary Oliver. Every time I read your poems, I get the inexplicable urge to go document the world through my own eyes so I might be able to sink deeply into this one wild and precious life. I love you forever. You showed me the way. Conversation. Love this art. Context, connection, zeitgeist, association, exchange, discourse. You can make work and conversation with many things, but since this is a book about making things with your feels, I'm going to focus on being in conversation with yourself. It's 2016, I'm in my early 20s, figuring out what it means to be queer, married, and a graduate student. I've yet to start therapy, and I'm wavering between familial responsibility and forging my own path. I'm trying to disentangle gender from sexuality and find common ground between my need for freedom and stability. And so I'm clinging to the notion that there could be many truths and desires within my body at once. Perhaps if they could talk to one another, I wouldn't feel so torn apart. What if the contradictions weren't actually incongruent? So I began painting messages, accusations, warnings, invitations, and fears across my skin with slick acrylic paint. I took a series of self-portraits, blew up those images, and papered my walls with them, a backdrop for another round of photographs. This series was an intricate conversation with myself, both an investigation of who I was and an invitation to continue becoming. Years later, when I finally started therapy, bless, I was introduced to IFS, also known as parts work. And holy shit, it was like someone switched on a light bulb. Not metaphorically, but like really, really, truly. I could see and understand parts of myself that I'd been groping around in the dark for my whole life. I felt such a deep relief. Everything I felt was valid and real, but it didn't make it true. There were vast stories and beliefs inside, and now I had the tools to distinguish myself from my inner child, from wounded parts, from protectors, etc. I just had to listen with compassion and care. As I've been writing this book, I have woven myself into countless sticky tangles. It's a white-hot blur that leaves me paralyzed for weeks on end, missing deadlines and avoiding emails from my editor. Sorry, Sarah. When I finally stop and ask all the shadows to write down their worries, I learn that one is terrified of what others will think of me as a designer, kerning, negative space, pacing, layout, typeface, etc. Another has a looming fear about what my parents will think of me when they read this, and what about my mentors and past professors, peers, and my students? Am I parading as an expert on things which I've only just scratched the surface? In deep conflict with these fears is an uncompromising insistence on being honest and real about my experience, and a timid belief that might soften some corner of the world just a little bit. As you can see, it's a wild kerfuffle, and when I validate the fears swirling within, letting them know I'm not a little kid getting bullied for being bad at spelling anymore, that I don't have to assimilate or to perform to perfection to belong to my community, they settle down, watching wide-eyed as I surge forward, their wails of terror now quiet. I can calm my inner selves with gentle reminders that we are all safe. I am the grown-up in charge here. Making conversational work allows me to breathe space in between stimulus and response, come to a deeper understanding of myself, and untangle conflicting values, beliefs, fears, and desires. Conversing with the swirling thoughts in my head illuminates the murky spaces. Where feelings cast shadows 3 times their size, when I'm able to untangle my mind onto the page, I find that the big scaries usually shrink into something resembling a scared or lonely child. It's as simple as letting your thoughts all spill out on the page, helter-skelter, nonsensical, and irreverent. I communicate best in fragments, words drawn together by lines and images, thus my love of mapping my body and mind. As my thoughts come like popcorn constellations erupting suddenly with little pops sprinkled about like stars. Once I orient myself, I am able to trace lines between various thoughts or worries to create a shape that leads the way toward understanding and self-compassion. Is there anything more validating than being invited into a conversation without judgment or assumptions, just open curiosity? Now imagine turning that type of care inward. What a fucking gift. Your turn. Next time you feel conflicted or overwhelmed, try making a mind map. 1. Begin by writing down the thing you are overwhelmed by in the center of your page. 2. Allow your thoughts to tumble out onto the page in a web around the central worry. 3. Once you've emptied yourself, see if you can find common themes and group them together. 4. Can you validate each point of view? Could you write out a conversation between them to see what each of the perspectives has to say? What can you learn from all of these? What exists in between them? Where does this constellation of fear, belief, desire, etc. lead you? This process unmuddies that sticky spaghetti mess like nobody's business. It's like wiping the fog off your bathroom mirror or finally getting the right prescription glasses. Everything comes into focus, and even if you still don't know the solution, you know what you're working with, and that's half the battle. Speak gently to yourself. You're building the voice that will narrate your future, and all your younger selves are listening. Want to dig deeper? Your Illustrated Guide to Becoming One with the Universe by Yumi Sakugawa. No Bad Parts, Healing Trauma and Restoring Wholeness with the Internal Family Systems Model by Richard Z. Shorts. Yumi Sakugawa. Your words and drawings open a channel through which I can be in conversation with myself and the universe. You're a rare gift. You've shown me how vast and beautiful the world inside of me can be. Expression. So there are lots of tickets here. It says meltdown 1, meltdown 1, meltdown 1, permission to feel it all, valid for entire life, VIP pass, let it out, remain sensitive now and always, express yourself, internal exploration, stay tender, it's okay to not feel okay. Expression, release, clarity, proclamation, voicing, sharing, liberation. Expressive mark making is like opening the release valve on your emotional Instapot and letting the rush of steam release from your body. That's how it feels for me when I take a photo of myself mid-cry or when I write furiously into my notes app instead of sending an angry text. I use art as an escape route, a pillow to scream into or a rooftop to shout from, be it in pain, joy, or terror. The day our 45th president was elected, after a sleepless night of dry heaving sobs, I went to my studio and gathered letters from my type case to spell out the phrase, "Not my president." I set the blocks of lead, locked them into the chaise or chassis, not sure, and began printing sheet after sheet of paper and these words in bold black ink. It wasn't revolutionary or original. The sentiment was floating all around the internet, but it served as a meditation and physical release. Every time the plates closed on the press bed, imprinting the paper, each time I heard the soft sizzle of my rollers turning across the ink disc, I felt the chant, "Not my president, not my president, not my president," loosening the grief in my body. I sat for hours addressing envelopes to everyone who had DM'd me on Instagram asking for one of these cards. Every time I stuffed an envelope, I felt a tiny ping of connection to the recipient. It didn't solve anything, but printing those cards and sending them to strangers around the country got me through that awful day. We weren't alone in this moment. As I write this, my face is puffy from crying and my hands are shaking from the emotion surging through me. Today, Roe v. Wade was overturned, and in a cruel series of events, it's also the day my beloved local coffee shop closed forever. Maybe it seems silly or dramatic to you who might not know of St. Louis's Rise Coffee House, but it feels like the whole fucking world is ending. I am numb but also electric, like I'm made of stone but also about to implode. Grief pulses in my stomach alongside punches of nausea in step with the beating of my heart. The place I found complete belonging and safety just closed on the same day that my government decided that my body is not my own. It's too much. How am I to hold all this? Where do I put this rage, this grief? It's manifesting an incredible tension in my arms and back and a throbbing head. I know that if I don't tend to these feelings, they'll transmute into bitterness or a breakdown or both. I must release it. Express the depth and range of emotion ricocheting inside my body and make something that will soften the grief and rage of those around me. So I'm going to make a zine, something to commemorate the place I loved most in the world, Rise Coffee House. Something to honor what it means to me and to keep the spirit of that place alive in me. Something for the throngs of people who wound down the street in an endless line since the closing was announced last week. Something that might validate their tears over a coffee shop when they start to feel a little silly for weeping over four walls and a latte, because it wasn't just anything. It was a movement, a moment, a world we built together. Then I'm going to write a letter to my body, letting it know we're safe, that we're a team, and that we're going to fight like hell for the dignity of safe, accessible, comprehensive healthcare for all. This is what expressive work looks like for me in this moment. What form will it take for you? Can you unburden yourself through creation? I'll leave you with the words by Susan Cain. Whatever pain you can't get rid of, make it your creative offering. Your turn. What is it you want to make known? What, if left unsaid, will eat away at your insides? What if the next time you were really angry, you snatched up the nearest piece of paper and wrote down all the things you'd like to say or do? Give yourself an immediate release instead of acting out that anger. Does grief ever threaten to swallow you whole? Could you give it space to live on the page? When did you last gush about the things you love? Feel something, make something, rinse and repeat. Want to dig deeper? Anything ever painted by Frida Kahlo. Bittersweet, How Sorrow and Longing Makes Us Whole by Susan Cain. Music or poetry that makes you cry, sing, and dance. Frida Kahlo, thank you for making such rich paintings about what it is to be alive and for teaching us what it is to love and lose and grieve out loud. You're forever in my heart. Disruption. Deconstruction, subversion, doubt, confrontation, questioning. In his 1962 essay, The Creative Process, James Baldwin calls the artist the incorrigible disruptor of the piece. He goes on to say, the artist cannot and must not take anything for granted, but must dive into the heart of every answer and expose the questions the answer hides. Not taking things for granted is quite a childlike way to approach the world. I like to call it practicing non-assumption. As I watch my tiny one investigate the world, I can't think of anything more apt to call him than an incorrigible disruptor of the piece. Nothing is safe from that sweet babe's curious eye. Everything must be tasted, chewed, or checked for audible resonance against multiple surfaces before ultimately being thrown aside. I try and encourage as much of this as possible. Unless there is an imminent danger, we tinker, bang, and taste. We do it wrong, backward, and upside down. Who's to say which way is the right way to use a spoon, or that tables shouldn't be sat upon? If we all gleefully perched atop raised surfaces, what fresh perspectives would we find? Our innate desire to try to uncover things for ourselves, to understand and make our own meaning, is scolded out of us by the pressure to conform, not make a fuss, and keep the peace. In my humble opinion, adopting feigned courtesy and manners instead of earnest curiosity and desire is a terrible way to live. Disruptive mark making doesn't have to be loud or impertinent. Sometimes the most disruptive thing you can do is pause and examine the origin of your values and beliefs. To ask why. What if you sat quietly with all the things you have accepted without question that live deep within your body? Can you embody your inner 3-year-old and ask why upon why, followed by yet another why? Not out of obstinance, but a deep thirst for understanding. Can you honestly say you know why you act, say, think, and believe the things you do? What might you upend if you weren't posturing toward beliefs that you don't actually want to uphold? Disruption looks like asking myself what I deeply, truly want. It's a disassembling of all the parts that make up a life and reordering them in the configuration that suits me and the ones I love best. I've engaged with disruption lately by pausing to explore tiny ants scurrying around on the ground, photographing the sky, and asking for what I need. I parent with gentleness, treating my child as a whole human being, even when it might make others uncomfortable or annoyed. Knowing what you believe makes you brave, curious, and sturdy enough in yourself to stand up, speak out, and rock the boat a little. Your turn. Do you uphold rules just to go with the flow? What would happen if you didn't? Where did your beliefs come from? Are they yours or someone else's? Where are the inconsistencies between your actions and beliefs? When did you last evaluate your motivations or examine your habitual gestures, phrases, and actions? Have you spent any time working to understand the positions, opinions, desires, and needs of those you stand in opposition to? Uncover your whys by crafting a manifesto. See page 146 for a guide, or a list of guiding principles once a season. This will help you stay nimble, adjusting to what is just in front of you instead of trying to create rigid rules for your whole life. Every time you encounter a rule, constraint, belief, or value this week, take it as an opportunity to ask why, to peer underneath and behind each one and ask, where did you come from? Who, what does this protect, support? Who, what does it harm, limit? Want to dig deeper? The Crossroads of Should and Must, Find and Follow Your Passion by L. Luna. Beyond the Gender Binary by Alok Vaid-Menon. The Live Your Values deck, Sort Out, Honor, and Practice What Matters Most to You by Lisa Congdon and Andrea Niculescu. The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck. Alok Vaid-Menon. You have shown me that disruption isn't about brute force. Rather, it is the art of persistently being oneself without shying away from precarious joy. A softer, braver lesson cannot be found. Thank you, thank you. In summary, here are some clouds to illustrate the intersection of these functions in my life, and to remind you that none of this happens in a vacuum. It's all intertwined. Let my categorization of these functions of art making inspire you to investigate your own practices and find the threads that weave their way through your work. I want to document these days by making a ritual of recurring tasks, honoring these moments that are at once unending and fleeting. This disrupts the rush, The desire to skim over the awkward, to polish up ourselves as though we're not all just soft animal bodies desperately trying to love the thing they love. Thanks, Mary Oliver. The slower and more present I am in my practice and everyday life, the more I crack open, expressing all the hungry wonder and raging grief inside me, and the more honest my conversation with the universe becomes. Making things is the most human thing we can do. Amen, amen, amen. So there are 5 photos of clouds here. This one says, take photos of the sky every day, same time, place, etc. Make it a ritual. This is what the sky looked like the day Charlie was born. Sweetest documentation. Be in relationship with the sky. Listen, have a conversation. Shout about how much you love the sky. Express. Follow the longing. Don't worry about what others will think. Disrupt with joy. Okay, ready to make some things? Okay, I'm gonna pause again, and honestly, I'm probably just gonna finish this book because I love it so much and I can't wait to read the end. See you soon. Bye.